First off, thank you to LeadDev and the organizers and the sponsors and all that behind-the-scenes work that put this together. I understand and appreciate how much behind-the-scenes work it goes into making a conference, so thank you so much. Thank you all for attending and sit through this 30-minute talk that I'm about to give you. It's a privilege to be able to speak in Oakland, where I also live. Like Ina said, it is a very underrated city. I used to live in San Francisco, but now that we have two boys, the oldest is 2.5, the youngest is 10 weeks old. Shout out to Parenthood. We needed a bit more space, so like a lot of you during the pandemic, we bought a house, and we bought a house in Oakland. And I'm a city person through and through. I lived in New York, I lived in San Francisco, but I love having a house. And my favorite part about having a house is the backyard, the space. I've got fences, I've got privacy, I've got this space where I can sit outside in the sunshine and let my mind wander. And like a lot of you, like a good engineering leader, my mind tends to wander towards the same topic like most of you every day. I think a lot about organizational structures in my free time. The pandemic really brought this to clarity, didn't it? When you try to order your video card, or you try to order your car, you try to order something, we started to see how the world was arranged, how reliant we are on the work of other people. Heck, look at the phone in your pocket. Something so incredibly complex that no single person could build it on their own, but it's also mundane. We all have one. We don't think about how they're being used, but they're made up of all these tiny, tiny parts. For example, if I want to make a cell phone, the first thing I need to do is, well, I need to write the software for it. That software is built on an operating system. That operating system is built on a chip. That chip is built on silicon and rare earth metals. To get silicon, you need to mine it from the ground. To mine it from the ground, you need mining equipment. To get mining equipment, you need a forge. To get a forge, you need steel and iron. To get steel and iron, you need mining equipment, and so on and so forth, all the way down. This complexity is what drives the world, and it's uniquely human. We spend the first 25% of our lives in school learning about what others have known so we can build something a little bit better, perhaps be better than our parents, be better than our predecessors. Isaac Newton said it best, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Today I want to talk about the organizational structures that drive our world, this complexity. And I want to talk to you about platform engineering. I promise you, every single person here uses some sort of platform. If you're writing software or technology, you're using a platform. And a platform, what it does is it allows us to build on top of each other. It allows us to build further and further and further and build creatively and use all these tools and abstract all this complexity in the world to build something that we don't even have to think about at the end of the day. We don't have to think about how our car works, how our cell phone works. We just know we get on it and we use it. And that's what platform engineering is. But instead of looking down, the platform's all the way down, I want to look up. I like to look up and see, what are people doing with the software that I'm building? What are the people going to do with the software that they're building, and so on and so forth. So today, let's talk about the rise of the platform team. Something that every single one of you have. I promise you have a platform team in your company. It may not be called that. It may be probably undervalued a little bit. I don't want to speak for myself, but it's something that's critical to software, and in the next, say, 10, 20 years, we're only going to see more and more of the platform team. My name's Jem, and I lead the Web Foundation team at Netflix. And like any good engineering team, we fulfill a specific business need for Netflix. We create a curated developer experience that allows for the streaming member experience on Netflix.com, allows members to sign up and log in, and we also allow fans to enjoy our content via the fan site Tadoom. So what's interesting about my team, the Web Foundation team at Netflix, is we support over 100 developers, QA engineers, localization engineers, and designers that all go into building Netflix.com. Okay, that's not remarkable. Yeah, you're a big tech company, you build stuff, we have a lot of people doing it, but we do this with just 4 engineers. Well, technically 4.5. Engineering managers only count for half. I know I'm tall, but that's what my team tells me. And we build these experiences that allow for sign-up, streaming, and to-do. Millions of sign-ups, hundreds of millions of hours of streaming, billions of page impressions with 4 engineers. And we do this by owning and operating a web platform. And we create this curated developer experience that supports all these different use cases. Today, let's talk about what a platform is, what a platform does, the history of platforms, or how a platform's made, and more importantly, I want to talk about the lessons we've learned. That is, some of the mistakes we've learned. And if you are on a platform team, you'll probably be like, yeah, yep, Jem, yep, that's exactly, I feel you. If you use a platform team, and you do, I want to talk about some of the areas of friction. Maybe it's not working so well. Maybe things could be a little bit better. So I want to tell you about those lessons that we've learned at Netflix. So if you'll pardon the pun, let's establish a good foundation of kind of what we're talking about, what sort of technologies we use. Netflix.com is built on TypeScript. We use React as our UI layer. We use Emotion and Less as our CSS solution. We use Falcor and GraphQL as our data fetching layer. We use Webpack as our code bundler, minifier, and we use NPM as our package manager. All that goes into building Netflix.com. Okay. But what's interesting about what powers the web platform is we're built on something called NodeQuark. NodeQuark is a Node.js platform that allows us to build container-based edge services based in Node.js. And actually, this platform, like any platform, supports a multitude of products. Every streaming and UI experience at Netflix is built on top of NodeQuark. But remember, it's platforms all the way down. NodeQuark itself is built upon Titus. Titus is a container management platform. Instead of spinning up and provisioning servers, we just use Titus, and it creates these virtualized servers. But of course, Titus, is just a platform, and a platform is always built on top of another platform. And Titus is built on Amazon AWS, of which Netflix, outside of Amazon, is the largest user. So after all that, what is a platform? What do you think a platform is? It's pretty simple, really. It's just a system or set of tools that allows you to build something, allows you to build an application or a service. It's a base. It is a consistent foundation to build on. A platform, a good platform, it obfuscates all this underlying complexity so you don't have to think about it. The same way you use your phone, the same way you get in your car. You don't think about all the parts and people that went into it. You just use it to do what you want to do. So what my team really does, and what a platform really is we provide the tools, the integration, and services necessary to build a high-scale, high-traffic web application without them having to worry about this underlying configuration and complexity. And at the core of a platform is really, it's an abstraction. It's an abstraction upon a bunch of components working together to allow people to be more productive. And I want to be really, really clear about this. A platform does not get rid of complexity. Complexity is always going to exist. That is the human condition. We make things more complicated by default. A platform removes who has to think about that. It allows them to think more strategically. Yeah, I got that lesson from an earlier talk already. What I found most important when you talk about a platform team, because platform teams, they exist in years. They don't exist in months and weeks and quarters. They exist in years. That's the time span of any sort of platform work. It's important to understand the origin of how platforms are made. I want to talk about the platform lifecycle, because you have a platform team at your company. They may not be called a platform team. They may be called a DevOps team. They may be called some other fancy title you invented, but you have a platform team. And let's talk about where they come from. So to start, you want to build something. You have an idea. Maybe it's Ubers for cats. I don't know. I support you. You'll probably get $1 billion of funding, at Silicon Valley. But you have an idea and you want to build it. You have an engineer, and they build this product and service. And I've got bad news for you. This is as good as it gets. This is as simple as it's ever going to get when you want to build something. You have one engineer. They have the entire stack in their mind. They have the technology. They have the APIs. They have the lint rules. They have everything they need to know in their head. So it's all good. There's very little complexity here. But here's the thing about engineers. We think differently, for better, for worse. An optimist sees a glass of water and says, that's half full. A pessimist sees the glass of water and says, no, that's half empty. An engineer sees a glass of water and says, no, you're both wrong. What we have here is a containment device for liquids that is twice as large as it needs to be. And that's the thing about engineers. We always make things more complicated than it needs to be, and we call it progress because it is progress. But distilling this down into something useful is a challenge, to say the least. So let's jump back to that product or service that you're building. Now you have 6 engineers working on something. Oh, crap. Now you have to think about the technology. People are debating what sort of language should we use. We have to think about the dependencies and the libraries. Everything's built on top of something else. Who's managing that? Who's updating the versions? Who's doing the migrations? Okay, you want to build something, you have to ship it somewhere. An application sitting on a machine doesn't do any good. You have to ship it to production. Who owns that workflow? Who owns the testing? Hopefully, you all are good engineering leaders and you're pushing people to write tests. I don't see a lot of people nodding. Okay, thank you. But someone has to think about that. Someone has to think about who's writing the tests, what's the standard of them, where do they run? So all this is adding complexity to the application. And slowly but surely, we build up. Oh, crap. Now you have 12 engineers. And let me tell you, 12 engineers in a group, they have a lot of opinions. They have a lot more opinions than just one engineer. Now we're thinking about API integrations. We're thinking about code quality, linting, standards, all these things that go in when you have 12 engineers working in a team. You have to think about logging. How do we know our applications are up or if they're down? We have to think about alerting and metrics. And not just that, you now have 2 applications that these teams are building. Complexity. This is a natural progress. This isn't bad. This is a good thing. Complexity, when managed, is what software does. It's what it's supposed to do. We abstract all this complexity away so we can keep building things on top. However, if you don't manage that complexity, it leads to technical debt, the dreaded word that I promise we all have a lot of experience doing. This happens naturally. This is the natural life cycle. This isn't a bad thing, but these 12 engineers, they're still debating and arguing, but this product still needs to go. How do we deal with this? What usually happens? So what usually happens is the most senior person on your team says, I've been here, I love building things, but what I really want to do is help the team out. So they take over and they become the DevOps person. And they put upon themselves to standardize and kind of make decisions, kind of gather this consensus. This is okay for a little bit. But here's the thing about complexity and thinking about platforms. A platform is like a company culture. It's going to exist whether you want it to or not. The choice you have is, are you intentional? Do you manage it? Do you say, hey, let's actually create a platform. Let's set aside people and resources and time to make all these decisions so that the engineers can stop debating amongst themselves, to stop arguing. That's really what I love about platform. It's a very specific space to be in, but I love making people more productive. I love taking away all this underlying complexity so that people can just build something. Because at the end of the day, platform engineering it's about enablement. Platform teams usually don't have strong opinions about what's being built. They just know they build something and then people build on top of that. And platforms provide standardization, and standardization is important. You ever had a nut and a bolt and they just screw together? You ever think how that works? Like all around the world, you can go anywhere and you put a screw and a nut and a bolt together and it just works. That's standardization. Somebody somewhere in a group of people have gotten together and agreed, this is how we should do things. And that's what a platform does. It provides a standardization at scale. It's standardization so you can scale. Instead of building one application and worry about the complexity, you can build 20. You can build 30. You can hire 100 engineers, and they all work on one product, and it all just comes together because they're not worrying about how it all fits together. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I became a parent 2 times over recently. And I'm tired. I'm always tired. I'm a lot of times emotionally drained. And sometimes I want to go back. I want to go back to the early days before I really got into tech, before I became a parent, before I bought a house and I'm sitting in the sunshine. And I want to go back to the days when things were simple. So let's jump back 20 years to 2002. Web development in 2002, this was the peak right here. This is as good as it ever got. To build a website, you needed HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And once you're done, you put it in a zip file, you FTP it to your webmaster, you check your flip phone, no text messages because text messages cost $5 a piece back then to send them. You hop on your Segway and you go hang out at the mall with your friends. Jump forward 20 years to today, the technology to build a website hasn't changed. It's still HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But things got a little more complicated in between now and then, in 20 years. Instead of just being able to ship these static sites straight to production, we go through a series of, well, we'll call them workflows. And this is a very, very simplified diagram of what it takes to ship a modern application to production. What we really need is not for developers to think about, oh, I got to compile, I got to push to GitHub, how am I going to merge it in? Is my deployment environment up? Am I getting alerted? Now we need to standardize all these workflows. And we call that workflow optimization. That's what a platform team does. That's one aspect. They optimize all these common workflows and they standardize them so that people can just get back to building. Plug and play as much as possible. And while HTML and CSS and JavaScript, they're never going away, as we saw, probably 50 years from now, maybe I'll be on stage again giving the same talk about how things got even more complicated. Because today, they are super complicated. You need to know a lot to be a modern front-end developer. You have to know a plethora of technologies and APIs. And that's okay. Again, complexity is not a bad thing. We shouldn't shy away from complexity, but we have to manage it. Because at the core, a website is just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Building these modern front-end stacks, you need these modern workflows. You need modern technology. You have to understand all of that. But really, you need that back end. I call it the back end for the front ends. That's the technology that powers the modern front end. Because you're not just writing HTML into your browser and shipping it. You have to go through these series of workflows. The Netflix stack is, we went over this earlier, TypeScript, React, Emotion, GraphQL, Webpack, NPM. But here's the thing with modern development. We have this hyper-proliferation of technology, such that I could easily replace TypeScript with Flow. We could replace React with Vue. Instead of Emotion and Less, we can use Tailwind, and so on. And the thing is, this is also a modern front-end stack. They're equivalent, but the technologies are completely different. This is okay. Complexity is okay. Having options is okay. It's great. However, you have to curate this technology. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of competing standards and people arguing a lot of the time. This is where platform gets tricky. Because developers have opinions. They want to use their own technology. And as a platform team, you have to say, what's best for the business? What is best for all of the users using it? Not just the loudest person in the room. What works for everybody? It's probably not the bleeding edge. You don't build production critical systems on the bleeding edge. It's probably a few versions back. But this technology curation is one of the key things, and in my opinion, underappreciated about a platform. You're probably not thinking, oh, this is running on Django. Oh, this is running on Ruby. Oh, this is running on Node.js. You just spin up the application and you go. A wise engineering leader once told me, managing a platform team means that no one is happy. Everyone's like, you want an old version of React, why can't we upgrade? I'm like, well, you know, we're working on it. Why can't we use this latest technology that I just saw in a talk that I saw this morning? Well, you know, we get paid. We don't want to take the system down on the bleeding edge, so we take our time. And that's a lot of what a platform team does. We curate all this technology to find what's the best option that fits the business. What's interesting about these two facets of platform engineering, which is technology curation and workflow optimization, is it forms into this standardized path that everybody can follow, that you can hire somebody tomorrow and they can get up and running pretty quickly. At Netflix, we call this the paved road, the blessed path, the curated developer experience, the official, hopefully well-documented way of doing things. And the thing about thinking about a platform as a paved road, a curated way of doing things is you start thinking differently about what the platform is, how you're using it. We think that a platform is a product. So the corollary to that is a platform team is actually an internal product team. You start thinking differently about your platform team now. They're not just a bunch of nerds who get together and won't let you use the technology that you want. They're building and they're enabling you. They're a product team, and you are their customer if you're using a platform. Honestly, what I found personally in my experience is the best platform engineers are former product engineers, people who have used the platform before, because they have empathy. They know, like, oh, what you think as a team is well documented is actually really poorly documented. The whole it works on my team, works on my computer, it doesn't work on their computer. So they join the platform team, and they're like, they point out all these glaring issues. And thinking of a platform as a product, we think, well, how do we measure success? How do we know that we're doing a good job? That's tricky. If anybody has one solid, good, reliable metric for developer productivity, you let me know, because I would love to hear it. But really, a platform has to measure itself on a variety of dimensions. Sometimes we measure ourselves on how easy is a migration? How easy is it to move from one technology to another? How long does it take to deploy something? How often do we deploy? What's our code coverage? How often do we have production outages? Can we change out an underlying technology or framework painlessly? And thinking of a platform as serving customers, what they build on top of your platform as a product, allows us to use different methodologies. Rather than just talking to people, which is important, we can send out surveys. We could have metrics around critical areas. We have feedback forums. We have an open Slack channel. We have retrospectives on what went well, what didn't go well, and we share them out to let everybody know what we're working on. And the most important aspect of a platform team is listen to people, listen to the customers. You don't want to be this on-high team dictating how people build, when they deploy. You have to talk to them and share their pain points that you have. Because I promise they probably understand the technology better than you do. So we learned what a platform team is, what they do, the origins of how they're made. So I want to share some lessons. And these are true stories. Like any good one, they're not necessarily happy, but in them we learned that we all share the same burdens. We all have these common issues. And I want you to learn from some of the, I won't say mistakes, learnings that we've had at Netflix. The first learning that I want to share with you is you have to understand the product. You have to understand what people are using your platform for. You can't just throw technology over the wall and say, doing great, we're good, you're good, we're on vacation in Hawaii. No, you have to sit with your customers. You have to understand, what are they doing? What are the pain points? This is a lesson we learned back in 2017. We had a centralized platform team called UI Platform. And it was a good idea. Rather than have a bunch of platform teams, why not just put them all together so you can share the technologies, make that shared paved road? That's a great idea, right? That was not a great idea. What happened was the UI platform team had this perception of kind of being dictators. Like, you need to build like this. This is what the lint rules are. This is how you should test. And people felt kind of alienated from the product because we just were too far away. So Netflix of today, we have platform teams for each one of the devices that you can stream on, the web, TV, Android, and iOS. And what's most interesting is, though my team, the Web Foundation team, is a platform team, we are considered a product team. We exist in product. We go to the product roadmaps. We go to our product demo fairs. We understand what's coming down the road, what people are excited about, and it gets us thinking about how can we make the product better? How can we enable people a little bit better? So the lesson here is be aware of being too far from your customers. You have to sit with them. They are your friends, your coworkers. You have to get to know what they're building, what their trials are. The second lesson I want to share with you is a very personal one to my team, is a platform team has to be well scoped. The thing with a platform team is it becomes a catch-all for all the issues that trickle down. An engineer builds a service or a tool. Who owns that in the long run? Is it that engineer? No, they're off building something new. You own it now as the platform team. So you have to be well-scoped as a platform team. I said there's 3 main applications on Netflix.com. There's actually 7, but they're not super relevant. They're not as cool. But we own this wide breadth, the Web Foundation team does. We own the tooling, the linting, the deploys, static analysis. We own a lot. And what was happening is we weren't delivering for our customers. People were saying, why can't I use the latest version of React? Why does this build keep crashing? And we weren't doing really well. The solution, of course, is you build another platform team. And we built 2 more on top of the web platform. We built a dedicated platform team just for sign-up. And we built a dedicated platform team just for streaming and to-doom. Again, this is a natural evolution of platforms. It's always going to be platforms and platforms and platforms and platforms. And what this did was it allows us to move away from making these generic solutions for sign-up and streaming, 2 very different experiences. It allows us to make a generic solution for the platform teams themselves and the developers. And now the sign-up platform and the streaming platform, they're more context-aware than we ever could be because we're supporting 100 people. This was a good idea. I bet in 5 years there'll probably be another platform team. That's how it goes. The last lesson, and something that's super, super important, always account for support and maintenance. Wow, it's really cool being a platform engineer and building this cool platform, and you're cool when the CEO's high-fiving you in the hallway. Most of the time, what we're doing is we're doing support and we're doing maintenance. This blew my mind. My team, Web Foundation, with 4 engineers, we spend 25% of our time on support. That means in a given year, I actually only have 3 engineers to innovate, to maintain, get all that work done. This was such a big learning for me because I felt like for a long time I was struggling as a manager. I'm like, why am I not getting what I want to get done? Why am I not delivering the way that I should be? I'm like, oh, because I'm actually down a person. But support is built into our DNA on the team. It's critically important. What are we building for if we can't unblock the people using the platform? But the thing is, you have to account for it. You have to account for the amount of time in Slack or Jira that the team is going to spend supporting all the engineers. The next one is maintenance. In maintenance, we'll just say migrations. Has anybody ever been through a migration? What? That's like 3 people. Wow, you all have really had good careers. You're lucky. Migrations can take anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple years. And maintenance is something that we don't account for. We don't think of a platform team as maintaining all that technology, maintaining all the APIs, connecting them all together. And the higher the abstraction we have, the simpler the tools, the more maintenance we have to put in underneath. This is one of the most valuable lessons I had to learn in my early time as a manager of a platform team is support and maintenance takes up way more time than you think, and you have to account for it. And if you're feeling the strain of why isn't the platform team delivering, ask the manager, ask the people on the team, how much time are you spending on support? How much time are you spending on maintenance? And I promise you'll probably get a very shocking answer. At the core of platform engineering, it's about leverage. It's about using a couple of engineers to build something bigger than ourselves. Archimedes said it best, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum that wants to move it, and I will move the world. To me, that's what platform engineering is. It's leverage. It's allowing people to rise up out of this complexity so they can keep building and building and building. Today we covered what a platform is. Just a series. It's a set of tools and systems that allow people to build. We covered what a platform does, the standardization at scale. We looked at how platforms are made through complexity and kind of obfuscating that complexity. We talked about some of the lessons learned. Platform engineering is about enablement. It's about that leverage. It's about helping people to build better. Because at the end of the day, the arc of progress is always slow, but it's always forward. Thank you.